In this story, after being reborn, the MC gains a unique ability. Everything he imagines becomes reality. For example, to heal a wound, he only needs to imagine it healed. To obtain the perfect body, no training is required, just imagination. To use any kind of elemental magic, he simply imagines himself casting it. He can summon any weapon or artifact just by picturing it. However, the results aren't perfect at first. Even such a broken skill needs to be leveled up. Fortunately, he ends up in the body of a student at a magic academy, giving him plenty of time to master his power. That way, he can properly prepare to take revenge on those who caused his death in the past. Here's what happened then. On that day, gates leading to mysterious dungeons suddenly appeared around the world, and monsters in those dungeons came pouring out. Humanity was powerless against these creatures, and the only ones able to stop them were those who had awakened magical abilities. Among these people are the Golden Seekers, a group of especially powerful people who worked to protect the world from the strongest monsters. They are Ingolf von Dietz, Claudia Bourgeot, Nathaniel Cavell, Iwako Hideki, and Lei Ruoxi. These 5 heroes use their powers to defeat any monster that steps foot into the human world, but they don't always have the best interest of the rest of the human population at heart. As a civilian gets cornered by one of the monsters, Ingolf orders Claudia to go and help the victims, but she doesn't care enough about them to move. It looks like the man is about to be captured by an ogre, but the monster's face is kicked in by the final member and the leader of the Golden Seekers. Misato Kyoichiro smiles as he tells everyone that he will take care of the rest of the monsters by himself. He leaps off after making sure that everyone is all right, and charges a large energy blast in his hand, using it to charge through the monsters like a human wrecking ball and take them all out immediately. The others can only watch in awe as he takes out the massive horde of monsters by himself, but it's expected that he would be this strong. After all, with his time magic, he can see the future, and he always knows what the monster will do next. At this level of strength, Misato isn't human anymore. In a matter of minutes, the army of monsters lay dead around the streets, and Misato confronts the final monster. It falls just as easily as the others, and Misato finally relaxes now that he has been able to protect the people's peace. All that's left for him to do is seal the gate so that no more monsters can come through. Right as he seals the gate, a blast sends him flying into the dungeon, trapping him behind his own seal. His 5 teammates watch him from outside the dungeon without a care in the world. Even with his time capabilities, he has never seen a future like this before. He walks up to the seal and asks them if they were all in on this horrible plan and why they would do something like this to him. The answer is obvious for them. It's because his need to make sure that everyone is safe has continued to put his team in danger. He grew to become a level 100 monster who can use time attribute magic, while the rest of his team just wanted to earn money. Now they have gotten fed up with him, and it's time for them to seal him away so they can focus more on taking over the world than the well-being of the people. With that, the team walks off, laughing at the man who is about to die. Misato pounds on the seal, demanding to be rescued, but they don't even spare him another glance as they walk away. He can't believe that they would betray him for such selfish reasons, especially since all his efforts were just to protect the world from monsters. He can't understand why they would do this to him after everything that they've been through, and he doesn't have time to figure it out either as monsters from the dungeon start to notice that he is trapped in the dungeon and start coming for him. Misato instinctively turns to fight them back, but he's met by a massive wall of hungry, powerful monsters. He uses his future vision to try and find the future where he can survive this, but every single future ends in his unavoidable death. It looks like his future already no longer exists, and this is really the end for him. Misato doesn't want to go down like a coward, though. He rushes at the monsters with a golden fist, determined to take down as many of them as he possibly can and change the future. In the end, though, even though hundreds of them have been defeated, thousands of them still march towards him. As he kneels on the ground with his own blood pooling around him, he realizes that there is no choice for him than to accept death. But even if he's going to die, he'll make sure that things won't end here. As the monsters pile on top of him, he desperately tries to make sure that his death won't be in vain. He charges up his time attribute magic in his body, with the intention of reincarnating and becoming stronger so that he can reach the peak of his strength. Once he reincarnates, he will definitely try to get revenge on them for everything they've done to him. All the rage and despair in his body will continue to grow until the day that he can finally take revenge on them comes. With one final push, he activates the time magic, covering the entire area in a bright golden light. When Misato opens his eyes again, he's in a much younger body in a different place. He stands up from the hospital bed and takes a look in the mirror. This new body has a younger face and short hair, and as he places his hand on the mirror, he realizes that the reincarnation worked just as he intended. Right now, he seems to be in a hospital, but the place has medicines that he isn't familiar with. It must have been several years since the incident, and he just hopes that it hasn't been too long so he can still take revenge on the people that betrayed him. On a table beside the bed, he finds a student ID that must have belonged to the previous owner of the body he's using now. From the date on the card, he can tell that it has been at least 20 years since the incident, meaning that he should still have time to find them. The name of the student is Asai Kyosuke, and they have the Void attribute at level 1. Seeing that attribute causes Misato to laugh maniacally as his luck. In his previous life, he was feared by his comrades for being the strongest because of his time attribute, but as he improved, he realized that he couldn't get any stronger. That's because even though his clairvoyance was able to see everything about the world, even he couldn't see the true depth of the Void attribute's power. But now this body that he possesses has the mysterious power, and Misato feels sorry for him. That's because the Void attribute is so rare and unexplored that it's also something that no one knows how to train. That's also probably why the boy is still at level 1. He was also probably mocked for having no attribute multiple times, despite unknowingly having the strongest. Now that he knows the situation that he is in, Misato makes a promise to the boy that's long gone, that he will make his name known throughout the world as the strongest adventurer that has ever lived. Thanks to his clairvoyance ability, Misato knows how to train the Void attribute, and with the power, he will become the absolute strongest in the world. Once he trains this weak level 1 body to something truly powerful, then he will make sure that the traitors from his past life will regret betraying him and causing his death. In order to get his revenge on them, Misato will have to get this kid past level 1. He was definitely more powerful than them in his past life, but now he's just a teenager. The Void attribute, as the name suggests, is a type of magic related to the control of nihility. The ability allows the user to freely project one's imagination into reality. Everyone is capable of imagining things, but turning that imagination into reality is where the difficulty lies. Luckily for Misato, this body that he has taken over is badly injured. That means that he can practice his new abilities on healing himself. All he has to do is apply the image that he has in his mind to his body, and visualize himself slowly healing his injuries. If he focuses, he can imagine every single cell in his body being restored by magic. Slowly, as he applies the magic to his arm first, and the massive bruise slowly starts to heal itself. It's only rudimentary casting for now, so the recovery speed isn't great, and he can tell that the inside of the arm isn't fully healed, but it's still very promising progress. If he continues using the ability to heal all his wounds, his level will slowly increase over time. The ability to convert imagination into reality will also improve over time as he continues to use it. As he levels up, it will also increase the scope of what kind of images he can convert into reality. Through that steady development, he can create many different kinds of things, and then he will eventually be able to use many different kinds of magic. It will even get to the point where the picture that the user creates in their mind can be created perfectly in reality. As he thinks about the potential applications of his new abilities, a doctor bursts through the door and is shocked that he's finally awake. Misato tries to get up, but the doctor tells him to sit down since he was seriously injured after getting attacked by a monster. This is the first time Misato has heard what happened to the former owner of his body. It must have been really bad, because the doctor is shocked that he woke up at all. He thinks that the miracle must be thanks to the blessing of the saintess. That's the first time Misato has heard the word of a saintess, but to the doctor, it's common knowledge, and he's shocked that Misato doesn't know about her. She is known as the saintess of the pentagram saints, but Misato doesn't know what that is either. The doctor just attributes his lack of basic knowledge to the fact that he just regained consciousness after sustaining severe injuries. For now, he switches the topic to giving Misato a thorough examination. As he leaves, Misato can't shake the thought of these pentagram saints out of his mind. Maybe they are one of the clans or adventurers that came to be in the past 20 years. While he's focused on leveling up, he also needs to get a grasp of what has changed over the past 2 decades. He grabs a remote from the bedside table and tunes to a news station. It's coincidentally playing a special program about the Triple S-class dungeon disaster that happened 20 years ago. That's exactly what he needs information on, and he needs to know what happened after he was betrayed. The broadcast states that the culprit of the disaster was the leader of the Golden Seekers, Misato Kyoichiro himself. Misato jumps out of bed in shock as he sees his own face plastered on the TV screen. He has no idea what they are talking about and keeps listening. Apparently, the news that went around was that he predicted the upcoming disaster but refused to tell anyone about it. Instead, he was planning to take advantage of the impending chaos that would sweep the world in order to take charge and rule it. To stop this, the other members of the Golden Seekers came together and fought him to prevent this from happening. After defeating Misato, the remaining members of the Golden Seekers renamed themselves as the Pentagram Saints, and after a fierce battle, they sealed the dungeon and saved the world. This false truth is a common knowledge now that the whole world knows about, and the Pentagram Saints have gone on to lead the world in many different areas. Misato turns off the news broadcast and stares out the window in shock. The shock turns to uncontrollable laughter as he figures out just what happened while he was gone. Not only did they betray him, they also dragged his name and dignity through the mud. They sacrificed him and shamelessly reaped the rewards. In the end, now they are being hailed by the world as heroes while he's rotting. With this new news, he is definitely not going to forgive them. Now he has to make sure that all of them go to hell one by one. But he has to calm himself down before he goes overboard. After all, he can't get detected by them since he is way too weak to take them on as he is right now. The first thing he has to figure out is where they are and how he can get to them. He takes the boy's phone and scans through it to figure out what academy he attends. Just as he thought, he attends Tokigo Adventurer Training Academy, which is headed by one of the Pentagram Saints, Iwako Hideki. He just woke up, and now he has already located one of the saints so easily. Iwako is a cautious man though, and he's not the type of person that would just show his weaknesses so easily. On top of that, the difference in their levels is just too great. Beating him as he is right now is pretty much impossible. For now, he has to focus on growing his levels and becoming stronger. He can't do anything at level 1, but once he grows to an acceptable range, then he will make sure that Iwako is the first target. A few weeks pass, and eventually Masato is fully recovered and preparing to be discharged. The doctor can't believe that he made such a speedy recovery despite how badly injured he was. He starts to think that Masato was once again blessed by the Saintess, but our MC cuts him off before he can finish that sentence. He wants the doctor to know for sure that everything that he has achieved so far was thanks to his own power. With that, he leaves the hospital, bidding farewell to the doctor for the last time as he walks out. Now that he's done with the bare-bones preparation for his plan, he's ready to take things to the next level. He has also managed to raise his level up to 27. It's time for him to get a warm-up and test his new abilities by heading to a dungeon. Before he left the hospital, he heard from the doctor that all of Kyosuke's family had died in an accident. It's tragic for Kyosuke, but for Masato, it makes things so much easier since that means that he can do whatever he wants, and he doesn't have to worry about anyone questioning his actions. As soon as he makes his way out of the hospital, he heads over to the nearest dungeon gate to start his first adventure. He has to make sure that he levels up and grows stronger as fast as possible. Now that he has grown his level by healing himself, it's time for him to test out his new skills in actual combat. He heads over to the stall by the gate where the security guard grants permission to enter, and he shows his student ID card. The guard grabs his hand to stop him before he can continue into the gate. He's worried about Masato entering the dungeon since he's only level 27, and this dungeon is usually a place where adventurers have to be at least level 30 to form up parties and enter the dungeon. Despite the strict regulations, Masato plans to enter the dungeon alone, which to the guard is essentially the same as suicide. That would be true for anyone with a normal class. But Masato is a student from the Tokigo Adventurer Training Academy, and that should give him special permissions to enter this place despite how dangerous it is. As long as he signs a consent form, it should be fine for him to enter without any restrictions. He knew something like this would happen when he approached the dungeon gate, so he looked up the special privileges he gets as a student of the school, and this is one of many. The guard has no choice but to let him through, but that doesn't change the fact that he's worried. Some voices call out to him from the other side of the compound. A group of thuggish-looking kids tells Masato that the guard is just worried about him, so he shouldn't take it to heart. After all, he's just a weak student that hasn't even graduated from the academy yet, so he should know his place. Masato only spares them one glance before he turns around and asks the guard where he's supposed to sign. He puts his signature and leaves to enter the dungeon after confirming that there shouldn't be any more issues. The guard watches our MC leaves and then calls out to the kids from earlier and tells them to head into the dungeon and follow Masato. He can't get over the fact that just allowing a kid to walk in there unprotected is basically suicide. At first, they try to argue with the guard since they are not willing to risk their necks for someone they barely know, but the leader among them stops his friends from making a big fuss. This might end up being good for them at the end of the day. If nobody is watching them inside the dungeon, then they can head in there and do whatever they want. Even if something terrible were to happen in there wouldn't be problems or consequences. His friends immediately understand what he's talking about, and they happily rush into the dungeon to follow Masato. Now they can pay him back for being such a brat to them and trying to attempt a dungeon that should be way above his level. The guard cheerfully sends them, completely unaware of their true intentions. This isn't the first time that they have done this. They kill the people that make their way into the dungeon and then blame it on the monsters. Thanks to that, they can line their pockets handsomely, and no one is any wiser about it. With that in mind, they continue chasing after Masato, but 10 minutes of running later, they still haven't caught up to him. The dungeon is a straight path, so it's impossible for them to have lost him, and at this point, they have no idea how he has gotten so far away. Eventually, they finally catch up to him, and they see him surrounded by a wall of monsters. At first, they think that they won't have to kill him after all, and the monsters will take care of him for them, but Masato proves them wrong by using fire magic combined with wind magic to kill all the monsters in a matter of seconds. They are shocked by the fact that he managed to kill so many D-ranked monsters at once, but they are also more interested in the massive loot drops that came from the monsters. If they sell that loot drop, then they can live comfortably for at least 6 months. Misato's back is still turned to them, so they think that he hasn't noticed them yet. This is the perfect time for them to spring an attack and kill him so they can get the rare loot drop. The three spring into action and surround him, then all at once, they unleash their magic at him. Misato finally turns around and gives them his attention, skillfully dodging all their attacks without wasting a second. He's used to these kinds of things already from his past life. No matter what era it is, there's always scum that tries to take what belongs to someone else. Since he dodged all their long-ranged attacks, one of them charges up a fireball and goes in close to take down Misato with a magically enhanced punch. Misato is quicker, however, and charges his fist with ice, which he uses to punch the attacker square in the stomach and send him flying back to his friends. The goon is taken down in a second and left to rot at the back while Misato turns and approaches the rest, who are now cowering in fear. In this new life, he won't be as merciful as he used to be. He plans to crush anyone that gets in his way and then use them as a stepping stone to get to his next goal without hesitation. Everything that he will do from now on is all for the sake of his revenge. With the goons taken care of, Misato leaves the dungeon completely unharmed. But the disappearance of the boys causes a teacher from the academy to come and check on what happened. The man is a subordinate of Iwako, Yoichi Tsudai, and he got the news that one of his students entered the dungeon alone. Instead of finding his student struggling, though, he instead finds 3 novice hunter adventurers lying dead on the ground. But there's no clues to explain what in the world happened in the dungeon. Back with Misato, he looks through his new stats now that he managed to finish the dungeon. Thanks to clearing the D-rank dungeon, he was able to level up and test out his void magic at the same time. Now he has gained a new spell called Info Obscurity, which allows him to not only take his level, but also erase his dungeon entry records. Thanks to that, he can wipe any clues from the D-rank dungeon that could lead back to him. Now that he has moved on from that, tomorrow is his first day at the academy, and he needs to prepare for it. He takes a look through Kyosuke's phone and sees some unread messages from people that are clearly bullying him and extorting money from him through violence. That perfectly explains what Kyosuke has been through and how he got in that sorry state. The next day, he heads to school, and as he walks through the front gate, he's greeted by a cute girl that seems to know him. This is his classmate Asahi Karin, and she runs up to ask him how he's doing after being hospitalized. It looks like despite his struggles, Kyosuke had people that were worried about him. As the two of them talk, a group of bullies come to confront Kyosuke. They tease him for being someone with no attribute, and they are clearly aware of the fact that he barely escaped death. These are most likely the people that were sending him threatening messages the night before. The lead bully steps up to them and demands for Kyosuke to pay up for them always having to protect him, and it's clear that this is going to lead to a fight. Karen gets in front of him and tries to stop the bullies, reminding them that Kyosuke just got discharged from the hospital. Although she's trying to be brave for him, her shaky hands are a clear sign that she's terrified. Our MC notices this and gets in front of her, assuring her that he will be fine. The bullies laugh at him, thinking that he's just trying to be cool in front of a girl. Since he's so eager to show off, the bullies are more than happy to remind him of his place in the school. Unfortunately for them, they haven't yet realized that the hierarchy has changed since Misato took over. He made a promise to the boy whose body he took over that he will make his name known throughout the world as the strongest adventurer. And Misato considers himself to be a person that keeps to his word. He taunts the first bully, and it works incredibly well, causing him to cast a spell towards Misato's direction. Using magic outside of dungeons is against school rules, but it seems like the bullies don't care anymore. They need to show Misato that it's wrong to step out of line when they don't have attributes. He tosses a fireball at our MC, and Misato returns it in kind, countering his attack with an even bigger fireball. The two attacks clash, resulting in a huge explosion while the bullies wonder when Kyosuke got the ability to use a fireball. Misato is barely fazed by the weaker attacks, and the bully tells his friends to stop standing around like NPCs and do something. The two of them unleashed wind and water attacks towards Misato, but just like with their boss, Misato counters the two attacks with similar attacks on a larger scale. They can barely believe that someone who had no attribute not too long ago is now using multiple magic attributes at once. This is a power that they have never heard about before, but it's just the beginning. Misato has just been using their own powers to nullify their attacks, but now it's his turn to go on the offensive. He charges up a massive fireball behind him to intimidate them, and the size of it causes them to run away in fear as he steps towards them. Misato grabs the closest one who's screaming for help as he tries to run away. Then he asks the boy if he gave Kyosuke any help back when he needed it. Without waiting to hear the boy's answer, he grabs him by the face and holds him up while charging a massive fireball in his fist. He knows that there is no need to hear what the guy has to say since people like him always end up saying the same things anyway. That's why, no matter what he ends up spouting out, it won't stop Misato's fist from crashing into his face. With that, he unleashes a massive blow on the boy, sending him flying backwards and leaving him unconscious in the academy courtyard. Karen can barely believe that this is the same Kyosuke from before, but it's obvious that something in him has changed. Now Kyosuke isn't going to be someone that will get picked on by nobodies anymore. He will start walking the path to becoming the strongest adventurer. Now that they've seen just how powerful Misato really is, the bullies start desperately begging for their lives. They carry their fallen friend and limp their way out of the courtyard, still shocked by the fact that Kyosuke seems to have become a completely different person after being discharged from the hospital. Misato sighs in disappointment. After all of the talk, the bully turns out to not be all that he's cracked out to be. He walks with Karen into the school, and it's clear that all the students saw what he did in the courtyard. They all stare at him and whisper to themselves as he walks past. Misato notices the stares and wonders if he stood out too much by showing off like that. As he walks with Karen, someone tries to cut through the crowd to get to him before he can enter his class. It's Yoichi Tsudai, and he approaches Kyosuke to ask some questions before class. Kyosuke has no idea who this guy is, but he looks like an upperclassman. It'd definitely be a pain to deal with him, and he decides to shrug off the invitation to chat. He turns around and says that they can't talk now since class is about to start, but Yoichi isn't going to take no for an answer. He introduces himself as the leader of Biting the Cat, which is a clan that Principal Iwako made for the school. That catches Kyosuke's attention immediately, and his hand freezes as he's about to open the door. Seeing that he has gotten our MC's attention, he asks again whether Kyosuke would be willing to have a brief chat and spare some of his time. Since the context has changed, Kyosuke happily agrees to have the chat with his upperclassmen. They find a secluded place to chat, and Yoichi gets straight to the point. He asks Kyosuke if he is the one that defeated the adventurers that were found dead in the D-rank dungeon. Our MC plays dumb, but on the inside, he's wondering how the information that he specially concealed got out. Yoichi says that he heard from the staff that a student of his academy had entered the dungeon, and he went in to investigate. And inside the dungeon, he found the bodies of the infamous criminals known for hunting novices. On top of that, not even up to 10 minutes ago, Kyosuke used multiple attributes to fight his fellow students. While all of those are true, the way Yoichi presents his evidence means that he doesn't really know the specifics of our MC's magic, and he also has no proof that he really was the one who took out those novice adventurers. Yoichi gets more aggressive and orders Kyosuke to spit it out and admit to what he did. But our MC remains calm and tells him that this morning, he only acted in self-defense, so he doesn't fully know what happened. Then he reaches into his jacket and pulls out the student ID card that he altered to show a fake level. The ID card says that he's just level 1, which means he can't possibly be strong enough to do all the things that he's being accused of. On top of that, he also has the Void attribute, which is well known to be a pointless attribute that might as well mean you have no magic. The fact that Kyosuke is just a nobody and is wasting Yoichi's time makes him angry, and he turns to leave, apologizing for calling him over for no reason. Before he leaves, he warns Kyosuke to avoid acting suspiciously so that he doesn't make trouble for his seniors. Kyosuke watches the upperclassmen leave with a smile. It looks like he has found someone that would be beneficial to his future plans. If he gets Yoichi under his thumb, then the senior can approach Iwako without the principal getting wary. The next thing he has to do is figure out a way to make Yoichi his pawn. This is the perfect time for him to test out an experimental spell that he has been cooking up for a while. Meanwhile, Yoichi goes to meet Principal Iwako to give an incident report of what happened in the D-rank dungeon. Iwako listens silently, before reminding Yoichi that it's unusual for him to make mistakes. He has warned his subordinates several times that he should be careful choosing who to use. Yoichi apologizes for his mistakes and bows down to the principal, promising to try and calm the situation as soon as possible. Iwako walks up to his subordinate as he continues to bow and reminds him that if it becomes known that he worked with adventurers who hunt novices, then the backlash will also reach the principal, who is a pentagram saint. Then he grabs the student by the face and tells him that if he continues to make mistakes like these, then he will be discarded in a heartbeat. Yoichi bows his head lower and tells the older man that he understands. On the outside, he seems polite and submissive, but inside, Yoichi is seething at the fact that he has to deal with this old man. If he had known that things would end up like this, then he would have tried to squeeze out more hush money from the novice hunters. Now that the major things have been discussed, Iwako still doesn't fully believe Yoichi's story. According to the report that he gave, the student that caused this whole mess should at least be a third-year student. But there's no third-year student who entered the dungeon recently according to the records. What Iwako suspects is that a monster defeated the group while they were busy hunting novices, and now Yoichi is desperately trying to cover it up. Rather than thinking that one of the academy's students is capable of beating novice hunters on their own, It's more realistic to think that Yoichi is just lying to save face. The only way that Iwako could be wrong is if something unusual happened. Yoichi immediately remembers the void attribute student from earlier. He asks Iwako if it's possible for a unique attribute to be involved in this mess. While it's plausible, it's also highly unlikely and Iwako doesn't buy it. Yoichi has heard what he needs to know, and he tells the principal to leave it to him. He will find out the root cause of the matter and deal with it swiftly. And he knows that Kyosuke is where he needs to start. The next day, a group of students are having a training course in a dungeon. They all unleash their magic on the monsters in the dungeon, but some of them are way too strong and jump over the students to attack them. The students desperately run away as Yoichi runs past them and blasts the monster in the back with powerful magic, causing it to fall to the ground. He calmly tells the students not to break formation and to remain calm and orderly. The students marvel at how amazing Yoichi is, and they aren't shocked by the fact that he was chosen by Principal Iwako to lead Biting the Cat. Now that all the monsters in the area have been taken care of, he leaves the rest of the dungeon clearing to the student and walks off to deal with a personal matter. Now that pressing matters have been taken care of, it's time for him to do what he really came here for. He pulls a piece of jewelry out of his pocket and activates it to reveal Kyosuke's current location. The chains glow for a moment, then point in a direction much deeper into the dungeon, far away from the other students. It's just as Yoichi thought. There's definitely something weird going on with Kyosuke, and he's determined to know what's going on. This is much better for him anyway, since no one would think twice about the death of a student who wandered away from the group. He'll just tell everyone that he happened to find Kyosuke already dead, deeper within the dungeon. Tragedies like these are a common occurrence in dungeons anyway, and he won't lose any sleep at night for it. The more Yoichi thinks about the strange student, the more he's sure that there is something that he needs to figure out. First, it was the incident with the novice hunters, and after that, it was nothing but trouble after he got discharged from the hospital. The boys that Kyosuke beat up also gave a rather interesting story that he wants to know more about. When he interrogated them, they begged for forgiveness and claimed that the boy with no attributes took them all on at once and even used multiple types of magic to attack them. Not only that, even after using the same type of magic they used, he also created a huge flame like nothing they have ever seen before. The whole thing is way too unrealistic for Yoichi to believe, and he's almost completely sure that they are lying. Once he finished asking the boys what he needed to know, he left them alone, but not before telling his subordinates to re-educate them and make sure that they understand that the academy has no use for weaklings who lose to people that are incompetent. He walks away as the boys cry for mercy, but the matter has been decided, and he doesn't plan on changing his mind. One of the bullies speaks up before he can leave the room. This one is the most badly beaten among them, and he's the same one that Kyosuke gave a devastating fire-charged punch to. He warns Yoichi that Kyosuke has long since stopped being human, and he has a whole different level of power. The fear in his eyes is definitely not something that can be faked. And just to be sure, Yoichi had Kyosuke placed in a special class hosted by Biting the Cat. Instead of showing off all the things that the boys claimed though, just created some powerful illusions which isn't half as impressive as what they claimed he could do. It's more likely that Kyosuke used some kind of magic item during their fight, and he's just a weak non-attribute that doesn't need any attention. He's also sure that our MC must have used some kind of underhanded method to take care of the novice hunters too. As he walks deeper into the dungeon, he starts to notice some monster corpses littered around the area. These monsters were most likely defeated by Kyosuke, and it looks like they were defeated with a single hit of fire. Seeing the evidence right in front of him makes Yoichi think that maybe those boys weren't just exaggerating after all. But the level of power he's seeing still isn't a big deal for him, and he continues walking deeper into the dungeon to find his target. Even Iwako, the pentagram dropout, could surely do something at this level of power. Speaking of Iwako, Yoichi is forced to do as he says for now, but one day the leader of Biting the Cat plans to surpass the old man and take his place as one of the pentagram saints himself. From there, he can go on to rule the world. Just thinking about it makes him laugh maniacally. That aside, he mustn't let anyone find out about his connection to the novice hunters. Kyosuke is also another thorn in his side that is likely to cause more trouble in the future. To ensure that little accidents don't happen to affect his grand plan, he has to make sure that Kyosuke is taken care of as soon as possible. The chains lead him to a dead-end part of the dungeon, and he's sure that his target should be just around the corner. He reaches the room and turns the corner, wondering just what in the world Kyosuke could be doing in a place like this. His answers are soon answered as he sees the student calmly resting on a pile of monster corpses, as if he were waiting for Yoichi. The moment he turns the corner, Kyosuke scolds him for being late and keeping him waiting. Yoichi can barely believe what he's seeing. After all, his presence should have been completely concealed. But it's clear that Kyosuke was patiently waiting for him this entire time. His mind starts to race as he wonders how Kyosuke managed to notice his presence, but our MC parrots his thoughts perfectly before he can even finish thinking them. On top of being powerful to unknown degrees, it looks like our MC can even read thoughts now. That's another problem for Yoichi to worry about as he tries to figure out who he's facing off against. With no reason to hide in the corner anymore, Yoichi comes out and directly asks Kyosuke what exactly he is. Kyosuke doesn't answer the question, and instead compliments Yoichi on being someone personally chosen by Iwako, but then he also says that the feat isn't something that he should think of as a big deal. The way he hunted down the novices and extorted money from them is a cowardly act, just like his mentor, Iwako. That's something that no one should know, but it's clear that Kyosuke has his upperclassmen all figured out. Then our MC jumps down from the corpse pile to confront his senior directly. He knows that Yoichi seems to enjoy tormenting others, but that is only because he has never understood how it feels to be hunted. Now that he has decided to cross Kyosuke, our MC will be more than happy to teach him what it feels like to be hunted, and by the end of it, he will use his magic to make Yoichi dance. After everything he has seen today, Yoichi can confirm it for himself. Kyosuke has become someone incredibly dangerous that he can't ignore. He activates a sword with fire magic and prepares to go to battle with the powerful student. For the sake of his ambition, he will do his best to defeat Kyosuke at all costs. Without wasting a second, Yoichi pushes off the ground towards our MC, charging towards him and unleashing a devastating strike. Kyosuke dodges it effortlessly, and he's not at all impressed by Yoichi's weak level of skill. Then he returns the attack in kind by charging up a fireball in his hand and sending it right back at Yoichi. The senior student cuts through the flame with his sword, and he too isn't impressed with Kyosuke's level of skill. It's clear that the two of them are holding back against each other, and the battle is just starting. As soon as the flame clears, a burst of lightning cuts directly towards him, and he is only barely able to block it with his sword. Then several sharp spikes pop out from the earth below him, but he's able to cut them all up in an instant with a few sharp sword strikes. That confirms that Kyosuke really is able to use multiple magic attributes at once. It looks like there is something crazy going on with his void magic that he has never heard of before. As he's talking, Kyosuke dashes behind him with an ice sword and goes for a backstab, but Yoichi is just barely quick enough to react in time and block it. Now suddenly, the upperclassman is on the back foot, and he's being pushed back by a much stronger and faster Kyosuke. Now, the leader of Biting the Cat is starting to get irritated. Ever since Kyosuke popped out of nowhere, he has done nothing but get in the way of Yoichi's plans. Kyosuke has no idea what he's talking about since he doesn't even know what the upperclassman's plans are. His plan is very simple. He one day wants to become the person that surpasses Iwako. After doing that, he will take Iwako's place as one of the Pentagram Saints. Kyosuke has no idea why he would choose Iwako since there are other Pentagram Saints, but the reason is simple as well. It's because Iwako is a Pentagram Saint dropout. If Yoichi plans to become a Pentagram Saint, then it makes sense for him to target the weakest one. And once he manages to become one of them, then he will earn the right to rule the world. Kyosuke is not impressed at all by the simple and uninteresting plan. He thought Yoichi might have gotten to Iwako first, but it looks like the upperclassman only has a pathetic ambition. There's no need for him to be worried about someone so pointless taking his spot as the person who will kill Iwako. The unwanted criticism angers Yoichi, and he charges at our MC with new vigor, and the two clash with their respective swords. Yoichi just wants power and money and women to be an easy access in his life. He wants the kind of power where no matter how much he tramples on others, no one can say anything. If he becomes a Pentagram Saint, then he can do whatever he wants, and he might even get a hold of the Saintess's weakness, and maybe he can go on to claim her as well. Kyosuke is tired of hearing the delusions of his power-hungry opponent, and he prepares to end this battle once and for all. With a quick flick of his sword, he sends Yoichi flying backwards, and the force is strong enough to break the upperclassman's sword. On top of that, thanks to Yoichi's meaningless rambling, it gave Kyosuke enough time to prepare a special magic spell. Yoichi cowers in fear as Kyosuke gets close and tells him to dance. Then he places a palm close to Yoichi's face, using his void magic to cast absolute hypnosis. The spell requires some effort to break the target's spirit first, but once it's activated, it will allow Yoichi to have complete control over the will of his opponent. He orders Yoichi to get up, and in an instant he rises to his feet like a zombie. It looks like the spell was a success, and he managed to get Yoichi under his complete control. Then he gives his new puppet orders to focus on completing the dungeon mission for the sake of the class. Then later on, he will get further instructions on what to do next. Finally, Kyosuke tells him to go back to using his normal tone since his current tone is too robotic. With that, Yoichi returns, but he is now fully under Kyosuke's control. As the man walks away, Kyosuke lets out a devious smile before walking off to return to his group. As he makes his way through the dungeon, he's found by Karen, who has been looking for him for a while. She was worried about him since he suddenly disappeared from the group without a trace. Kyosuke puts on his best smile and apologizes for disappearing all of a sudden. He tells her that he just went to talk to Yoichi about something. That shocks her since she didn't know that he and Yoichi were so close, and she asks him what they were talking about. He tells her that they were just talking about how to make their dreams come true, and he got some good advice. The advice was so great, in fact, that one of his dreams has already come true. Their conversation is interrupted by the group of students leaving the dungeon. The special class is about to end, and all students need to report back to the group before they leave. Karen turns around to head back to the group and tells Kyosuke to follow her. Everything is going right according to his plan, and now he has managed to acquire a pawn that Iwako would never suspect. Yoichi returns to give a progress report on how his investigation into the person that attacked the novice hunters is going. He tells Iwako that the student who attacked the novice hunters is actually a student with a unique attribute just like he suspected. The student is Asai Kyosuke, and he's a first-year student with the void attribute. Yoichi claims that he is holding Kyosuke captive at the usual torture location, and he is also interrogating the first year to dig out information. That is how the student admitted to using multi-attribute magic. That catches Iwako's attention, and he asks what Yoichi means by multi-attribute magic. The specifics are currently unknown, but Yoichi asks for some more time to figure out what hidden secrets Kyosuke has. On top of that, it's been a while since the principal has had any hands-on time with their victims. Yoichi asks Iwako if he would like to be in charge of the students' torture and interrogation. This sort of thing isn't usually something that Iwako would concern himself with, but just once wouldn't be bad for him. It's been a while since he tortured someone, and it'd be a good opportunity to repay the kid generously for all the trouble that he has caused to both the principal and Yoichi. As the two discuss, Iwako's phone rings, and he tells Yoichi to leave, assuring him that he will go to the warehouse later to take care of it himself. Then the man answers the phone, to be greeted by a mocking female voice on the other side. She greets him and thanks him for choosing her company during the previous day's bid on materials. Iwako isn't ready to hear her pretentious tone and tells her to drop the act. The person on the other side of the line is one of the Pentagram Saints, and the current CEO of Lei Company, Lei Ruoxi. She drops the act just as he asked and reminds him that they are both partners since they are sharing the government's lovely subsidies. Iwako still isn't in the mood for her annoying mockery, and he tries to end the conversation by telling her that he's busy right now and they can talk on another day. She asks him what business that he could possibly have since he has an easy job as a ruler of an academy that constantly fills his pockets. He tells about Kyosuke and his void attribute, and that catches her interest. She knows the void attribute as a useless attribute and wonders what Iwako wants to do with a failure like that. He agrees with her that the void attribute isn't worth much concern, but he also reminds her that anything could happen since the void attribute is still a unique attribute. It's obvious to her that Iwako is still thinking about Kyoichiro Masato's time attribute magic. The principal doesn't like hearing that man's name and screams at her so loud that she has to take the phone away from her eyes because of the volume. Iwako is still as short-tempered as ever whenever Masato is mentioned, but she can't blame him for that. After all, as soon as Masato awakened his time attribute power, the balance of power between adventurers shifted completely. Since she has said what she needs to, she decides to end the call and tells him that she will contact him later. Iwako slams the phone receiver on the table as soon as the call disconnects. He doesn't like talking to her, and he especially doesn't like hearing the name of their former leader. Just hearing it has gotten him fired up, and it seems now is the perfect time for him to take out all his anger. Iwako heads to a secluded warehouse in the forest where he and Yoichi usually carry out their torture methods on their victims. As he walks towards the large doors, he wonders how he's going to torture the student, going through various different torture methods in his head. He couldn't let out all his anger on Masato, so he will pour it out on Kyosuke instead. The door opens up to an empty warehouse, and neither Kyosuke or Yoichi are there. As Iwako is trying to figure out what's going on, Yoichi comes up from behind with his sword drawn and aims directly for Iwako's face. The principal doesn't even look behind him as he catches the sword between two of his fingers. For Yoichi to think that an attack like that would land, he must have severely underestimated his principal. Iwako charges up energy in his hand, ready to teach Yoichi a lesson. If he was upset at the mention of Masato earlier, then this petty attack has made him manic with rage. He wraps Yoichi with magical chains and holds him upside down. Then he kicks his subordinate away with ease, sending him falling to the ground with a grunt of pain. Clearly, Yoichi made the wrong choice here, by challenging Iwako without acknowledging their difference in strength. Now it's time for Iwako to break him down and destroy all his foolish desires. Before he can start teaching Yoichi a lesson, a stern voice speaks up behind him and laughs at the fact that Iwako still remains an idiot. The principal turns his head towards the voice and sees Kyosuke calmly walking out of the warehouse. He continues to berate Iwako, pointing out his love of groveling before the strong and exploiting the weak. The older man is still just as greedy and foolish as he's always been. Iwako still doesn't realize just who he's talking to, and tries to remind the student that he's talking to the principal of the academy. But Kyosuke doesn't stop talking. He points out the fact that Iwako is a hypocrite, since if anyone has ruined themselves with their selfish desires, it's definitely him. That's the last straw for Iwako, and he demands that Kyosuke give him his student number so he can be expelled. Kyosuke smiles at how Iwako still hasn't figured out just who he is. He has worked so hard to get to this moment, and now it's finally time for he and Iwako to have a chat between themselves. Iwako still has no idea just who he's talking to, but now he's sure that he's going to need to teach Kyosuke a great lesson to prove just how great the difference in their strength is. He starts the attack with advanced Earth attribute magic, creating a giant fist out of rocks to destroy Kyosuke in one hit. Normally, there'd be no way a student would avoid an attack like that. He sends the fist flying towards Kyosuke, who doesn't react to it, and it looks like he's about to take the full brunt of the attack. The attack lands, and Iwako starts to laugh wildly, thinking that Kyosuke has been taken out so easily. This is what happens when mere students try to defy him. The smoke clears, and there's no sign of life left, and the warehouse is completely destroyed with nothing left. Iwako starts to think that he went a bit too far since he destroyed the warehouse, since he'll now have to think of a new place to torture other people. He never even got to figure out who Kyosuke was, but he can at least stick around to watch him die. Once he feels like his job is done, he turns around to leave, but then notices Kyosuke standing in front of him, completely untouched. Our MC calmly walks out of the wreckage and reminds Iwako that he only wanted a little chat and not violence. The principal can barely believe that a mere student got hit by his advanced magic, but still managed to come out of it completely untouched. There has never been a student as powerful as that before. Now Iwako isn't just curious, he's furious, and he demands to know who Kyosuke is. Kyosuke smiles and asks Iwako if he still hasn't figured out who he is after all this time. Iwako still doesn't know who Kyosuke is, and tells the student to stop messing around and just reveal his name already. Kyosuke smiles and asks Iwako one more time if he really forgot about him. That's when Iwako finally notices from the way he talks and the mannerisms that this student looks and sounds an awful lot like Misato. The older man starts to back away in fear, not believing that Misato could be back. After all, that guy is definitely dead, and made sure of it by locking the portal. He starts to think that all of this must be some kind of sick act put on by Kyosuke, and he tells the student to stop the performance. Kyosuke probably just saw the new segment about Misato recently and is trying to play a character to look intimidating. That's the only explanation because as far as he's concerned, Misato Kyoichiro is dead. With that, Iwako charges up wind magic in his hand and gathers earth magic around himself as he prepares to unleash another heavy attack. Kyosuke sighs in disappointment at just how little Iwako has changed. He has always been like this, and he lives his life only believing what's convenient for him while ignoring what isn't. Iwako is tired of hearing Kyosuke's lectures and continues to charge up his magic attack. He warns the man that if he continues to come closer, then he will be hit with a full blast of his magic. Kyosuke continues to walk forward, charging a magic blast of his own. He has figured out the man's motive by now. He was swayed by the sweet words of those around him, and that's why he ended up betraying Misato. Saying his name seems like the last straw for Iwako as he tosses a fully charged magical attack at the student. Kyosuke responds in kind with a blast of fire magic, completely nullifying the attack with a single swipe of his hand. The air clears as both their spells dissipate, leaving Iwako completely shocked that a student could counter his spell. On top of that, he countered the spell with the exact same technique that Misato used to defeat the final monster during the gate disaster from 20 years ago. There's no way for him to deny it anymore. It's obvious that this really is Misato who has somehow come back for revenge. Iwako falls to his knees as he starts to remember everything. He's sure that they sealed him in the dungeon and Misato should definitely be dead, but it looks like he somehow survived. Kyosuke assures him that he was truly sealed and trapped and he was thrown into the depths of despair. Iwako finally accepts that this really is Misato standing in front of him, and the student comes up to his principal with a smile, looking happy that Iwako finally remembers him. Iwako is so shocked that he has to ask again if Kyosuke really is the dead Misato Kyoichiro. The principal doesn't wait for an answer and gets up to challenge him again. He just can't believe that this really is Misato. That man died over 2 decades ago, and for him to be here, that means he somehow returned to this world. Then he starts charging up another spell, this time to bring Kyosuke down for good. He fires more wind-based magic attacks at the student, and Kyosuke easily steps back, avoiding the attack entirely. But Iwako doesn't give him time to rest and sends another massive rock fist crashing down on him. Kyosuke still manages to calmly dodge the attack with no serious urgency. At this point, Iwako is getting even more angry that a little brat is managing to perfectly dodge and avoid all his attacks seemingly without breaking a sweat. He has to gain the upper hand as soon as possible, because it isn't just the fight that is at stake in this battle, but his pride as well. He was non-combatant during his time as a Golden Seeker, and even up until now, the other Pentagram Saints make fun of him for how cowardly he used to be. But he didn't let their taunting keep him down. He has made sure to prove that he isn't weak countless times, and recently he has been developing something that will definitely show off his true strength. Iwako raises his hands and gathers wind and earth magic around him, causing the area around him to darken as magic swirls around him. This spell he's preparing is a secret technique that took 20 years to create. More rocks and wind gather around in the air and swirl around him, building up into a devastating attack. This is the product of him devotedly learning how to dual-use wind and earth magic at the same time. Once the spell is fully activated, he sends it flying towards Kyosuke all at once. Multiple powerful shots of wind and earth fly from his palm, straight towards our MC, and they cut through the air, before striking the ground and causing a huge explosion to completely engulf the student. The large whirlwind of magic settles and Iwako takes a moment to catch his breath. This is his strongest magic spell, and it clearly took a lot of energy from him to cast it. The dust starts to settle, and once again, there is no sign of Kyosuke anywhere within the debris. It looks like Iwako has managed to come out on top this time. Kyosuke isn't countering, which means that he has most likely been taken out by the powerful spell. Iwako bursts out in laughter, happy that he managed to take down the great Masato Kyoichiro on his own. He starts to taunt the presumably dead man, asking whether he really thought that after 20 years, he would still be the same coward that he used to be back in the days of the Golden Seekers. No matter how strong Misato's time attribute is, that's all in the past, and now Iwako is the one who has come out on top. Back then, when large fights would happen, and the Golden Seekers would come out to save the world, all Iwako could do was hide and collect loot drops for the team. But that time was 2 decades ago, and Iwako isn't the same person he used to be. He mocks Kyosuke for underestimating his strength, and forgetting that after 20 years, one's strength will most certainly increase over time. It's only natural that he got stronger after all. Now that he has the feat of finally taking down Kyoichiro, he will make sure that the other Pentagram Saints don't act high and mighty anymore. Now he will begin his reign as the true strongest among the Pentagram Saints. A voice cuts into his delusional ranting and asks him if he's finally done. Kyosuke comes out from the dust, completely untouched, and wipes the extra dirt off of his body. After taking so many attacks, somehow he is completely unharmed. Kyosuke on his part is at least slightly impressed that Iwako has become able to use such powerful magic. That's only to be expected from a hero of this era after all. But now that he has let Iwako have his fun, it's Kyosuke's turn to let his anger out without holding back. Iwako finally understands the difference in strength between them and realizes that the guy he's facing off against right now is a monster. But he can't back out now, especially not after he worked so hard to get to where he is right now. He won't let Masato come in and mess up everything that he has struggled so hard to build. Iwako continues to press on the attack, using another Earth Fist to try and grab Kyosuke, but our MC doesn't react to another iteration of the same repetitive attack. The hand comes down on Kyosuke and slams shut, but he's easily able to dissolve the earth magic with water. Once again, this entire fight is just Iwako barking loudly as Kyosuke waits for him to finish and wear himself out. None of his attacks are going to be enough to defeat our MC, and at this point, he's just wasting his time. Despite that though, he still continues to waste his energy by releasing endless amounts of magic attacks at Kyosuke, even as the student continues to effortlessly dodge and counter everything. At this point, he's just desperately trying to keep our MC away out of fear, but Kyosuke has had enough of this fight. He uses one clean attack to deflect all the magic away before it can get to him. Then he uses another wind attack to push Iwako back, causing him to slam into a tree. Before the older man can get up, Kyosuke approaches with a fire-enhanced fist, ready to bring the man down once and for all. Iwako, realizing that there's nowhere else to go, cowers in front of Kyosuke, desperately begging for forgiveness. Kyosuke stops the fire fist for a moment as the man continues to grovel in front of him. He apologizes for what happened 20 years ago, and continues to beg for his life. Although he seems sorry on the outside, he's banking on Kyosuke's overwhelming empathy and niceness to let him off the hook. If he just begs hard enough, then surely Kyosuke will let him leave with his head still attached. But our MC just tells him to shut up. He can see through the older man's tricks, and knows that this is the same method they used to trap him back then. There's no way he would ever let what happened last time happen again. It looks like Kyosuke is beyond begging at this point, and he prepares to end the fight quickly by reigniting his flaming fist. Iwako gets up and continues to beg, reminding Kyosuke that they used to be friends, but it's already too late, and our MC tells the man that he no longer has the right to call him a friend. Now he has only become a demon of revenge. Then with no hesitation, he slams his flaming fist into the man's face and follows it up with several high-intensity attacks, brutally beating the man within an inch of his life. As Iwako starts to lose consciousness, he starts to realize that he never should have messed with Masato Kyoichiro to begin with. Kyosuke unleashes one last powerful punch, sending the man flying backwards and knocking him unconscious. Despite the brutal beating, he made sure not to kill Iwako. After all, he still has some questions for the man. Those questions are going to have to wait though, because the man is completely knocked out and incapable of speaking. After a while, Iwako wakes up and sees Kyosuke towering over him. The man immediately screams and jumps back in fear, before going back to begging not to be killed. Kyosuke tells him to calm down, assuring him that he won't be dying yet. But in exchange, there are some questions he needs answers to. Kyosuke reaches into the man's pocket and pulls out his phone. The first thing he needs is information about the pentagram saint, Lei Ruoxi. Iwako tries to reach for his phone, but Kyosuke holds it out of reach. He looks through the call logs, and according to his history, he spoke to Lei as recently as today. Kyosuke demands to know what the two of them were talking about. Knowing fully well that he will most likely die if he doesn't cooperate, Iwako breaks and reveals that Lei is supposed to be coming to Japan in 3 days, and she wanted to talk about her upcoming visit. Kyosuke smiles at the information. In 3 days, one of his targets will be coming right to him. That makes everything so much easier and helps him to decide what he's going to do next. With that, he tosses the phone back at Iwako and orders him to treat Lei normally for now. However, he also warns the man not to reveal anything about his identity. Kyosuke placed a special spell on Iwako's heart while he was unconscious. The spell will allow Kyosuke to monitor him, and if he tells her who he is, then in an instant, Iwako's heart will explode in fire. That causes the older man to freeze in panic as his brain struggles to process the information. With nothing left to say, Kyosuke leaves, encouraging Iwako to make sure to keep his promise. The truth is that Kyosuke doesn't actually use that kind of magic, but knowing how cowardly Iwako is, having a bluff like this will work as well as putting the spell on him. He doesn't want to use absolute hypnosis on Iwako, because he wants the man to be in complete despair while still retaining his sense of self. 3 days pass, and an inconspicuous flight is on its way to Japan. Lei Ruoxi is on this flight, and she stares out the window in boredom as one of her bodyguards informs her that they are almost there. The flight attendant goes to the back to announce to the passengers that the plane will be arriving shortly in Japan, but before she can finish her sentence, she screams into the mic as something happens to her. A group of armed men are hijacking the plane, and they hold the flight attendant at gunpoint. One of the men points his gun at the group of unarmed civilians and orders all of them to get on the floor. Lei Ruoxi gets up without hesitation as the men continue to shout, and she walks towards the back of the plane. Then, in an instant, she rushes in front of one of the men and grabs him by the collar, using magic to slam him into the ground before he can react. With one down, she runs to the other one holding the flight attendant hostage and knocks him out with a quick palm strike to the face. In a matter of seconds, both criminals are incapacitated, and the passengers look up to see Lei Ruoxi standing over their unconscious bodies. The plane lands without any further mishaps, and the criminals are escorted away by law enforcement. The owner of the airport arrives personally to thank Lei for her efforts in quickly and silently dealing with the criminals. Lei is just happy that she coincidentally got on the same plane with the hijackers so that she would be there to stop them. Thanks to that, they avoided the plane's reputation getting tarnished. More importantly to her, though, it seems like the criminals were using a special type of gun that doesn't get picked up by detectors. Recently, there have been many groups armed with gear made from materials they got from dungeons. That's why Lei plans to give her staff some of that special self-defense gear. She puts her hand on the owner's shoulder and directly tells him that she wants the gear that his airport uses. Immediately understanding what she wants from him, he bows his head and assures her that he will make sure it happens. Once they are within the airport and away from the earshot of any eavesdroppers, Lei makes a phone call and tells the people on the other line to release the hijackers. She was the one who planted the hijackers in order to take them out and save the day. By doing so, she helped to seal the deal with the owner of the airport, and even gained some extra publicity as a result. As she leaves the airport, an adoring group of fans are waiting to give their love to her. They all see her as the hero, Lei Ruoxi, and she smiles and waves back at them. She makes it to Tokugo Adventurer Training Academy and heads to Iwako's office to discuss business with him. She's still curious about the Void Attribute student that Iwako mentioned earlier over the phone. She wants to know if any progress has been while investigating the student. Iwako stutters for a moment but admits that the whole thing was just a false alarm. The bandages and wounds on his face are none of Lei Ruoxi's concern, and she doesn't ask about them. Instead, she gets straight to the point of their discussion now that she has confirmed that the Void Attribute student is nothing but a waste of time. Iwako is still terrified about the spell that Kyosuke claimed to have placed on his heart, and he desperately tries to appear normal so he doesn't attract any unwanted suspicion from her. Lei Ruoxi puts her cup down and gets to the main point of her discussion, which is a new drug that her company is developing. They will need to choose who the next guinea pig for experimentation will be, and she wants to make use of the students in the academy for it. Kyosuke listens to the entire conversation through an earpiece connected to the room. He's disgusted by the things he's hearing on the other side of the call, and that only helps to make his decision for him. The next person that will experience the despair of his revenge will be Lei Ruoxi. Back at his house, Kyosuke watches the news for the day as he thinks through his plan. The news talks about Lei Ruoxi and how she recently arrived in Japan. It also praises her for taking care of the hijackers that tried to take down her plane. Kyosuke is too focused on his plan to care about the news segment. Lei Ruoxi is one of the people that betrayed him 20 years ago. From the research he managed to dig up, he found out that she produces unique weapons using material from dungeons, and it also looks like she has managed to make a fortune from selling them. But judging from the conversation that she had with Iwako earlier, it's likely that she's using the school and its students to do some bad things. On the surface, she portrays herself as a hero, but behind the scenes, she takes advantage of others. This isn't something that Kyosuke can just allow to happen under his nose. He heads to school while trying to figure out what to do. Saying that he wants to have revenge on Lei Ruoxi is one thing, but he doesn't have any idea on how to go about it. The school's security has gotten much tighter since Lei Ruoxi became involved with its affairs, so for now all he can do is investigate the situation and try to find an opening. As he's walking through the halls, Asahi comes over to greet him on her way to class. She notices that he's reading an article about Lei Ruoxi and doesn't hide how much she adores the older woman. While they are talking, she mentions something called the Great Snake of Changshan, which is very popular. The Great Snake of Changshan is a clan that was created by Lei, and they have a bunch of powerful members. It's likely that the men in black suits that were guarding Lei earlier were also from that clan. Many of the students from the school are also planning to join the clan, as well as military organizations. She asks him what his plans are, and initially, he wants to say that there's nothing he would want to do. But then he realizes that using that clan could be a perfect way for him to get closer to Lei. He comes to a decision and thanks Asahi for helping him figure out what he's going to do going forward, then he walks away. Asahi has no idea what he's talking about, but she's happy to help regardless. In Iwako's office, the principal is taking care of some business when his phone rings, causing him to jolt up in fear. He picks it up, and it's Kyosuke on the other line. He needs a favor from Iwako, and it's related to the next time that Lei contacts him. Meanwhile, in a secure research lab, men in lab coats walk around the room while a student kneels on the ground, chained and clearly in distress. The door to the lab opens up, and Lei Ruoxi walks in, mockingly asking the kid how he's feeling. The student begs her to make them stop injecting some weird drug into him. If they continue to do so, then he will surely die. Lei Ruoxi kicks him to the ground and tells him to stop complaining. After all, if the drug tests are successful, then he will end up becoming much stronger as a result. And all he has to do is keep being a little lab rat for them. She snaps her fingers, and two of the researchers come up behind the student and inject him with another dose of the strange medicine. The student tries to beg and move away, but as soon as the drug enters his system, he starts to gargle and scream, before eventually going silent. It looks like this time, the medicine caused him to lose his language ability. It seems like if the lab rat doesn't have at least some skill in magic, then the drug won't work on them. They still need to gather more data, and for that, they will need to get more test subjects. In order to do this, they can hold a recruitment for the Great Snake of Changshan clan, but it's actually a way for them to gather strong people to use as test subjects. She makes a call to Iwako in order to ask him if he remembers their discussion about test subjects before. Right now, she needs someone who is skilled in magic, and she wants him to pick out some students from the academy for her to use. Iwako instead gives her an idea to hold a selection at the academy. That way, they can directly find people who are skilled and bring them in without arousing suspicion. Lei Ruoxi is delighted by the idea and starts planning to hold the selection immediately. Meanwhile, Iwako ends the call and sighs. He has done what Kyosuke asked him to do, so now the ball is in our MC's court. The next day, one of Lei Ruoxi's guards makes an announcement to the students, informing them that the Great Snake of Changshan will be holding a selection exam to find new recruits. The students are excited to get an opportunity to join a popular clan, but Kyosuke simply smiles in satisfaction. It looks like a road to get closer to Lei has finally appeared for him. The students interested in joining the Great Snake of Changshan gather in the school's sports field to take the selection exam to join the clan. Lei Ruoxi's personal guard appears to give a rundown on how the exam will go. As he's listing out the rules for the competition, Kyosuke decides that he has to pass this selection exam so that he can join the Great Snake of Changshan and get close to Lei. His approach to this one has to be different from how he got to Iwako. Before, he tried not to draw any attention to himself. But this time around, he has to catch the attention of Lei's right-hand man, Yang Xinyu, and also the attention of the other examiners. To do that, he decides to show off his power a little bit. After the initial announcements, Kyosuke heads over to the seating area to wait for the real preliminaries to begin. Asahi comes over to meet him when she sees him resting by the stands. She reveals that she also plans to take the exam, much to Kyosuke's displeasure. He would rather not have her getting involved in this whole mess. Asahi herself knows that she doesn't really belong with the other powerful students who are taking the exam. But she has her own reasons for wanting to join despite that. She plans to do her best to make it through the exam, and she wishes Kyosuke good luck as well. The exams begin, and it starts with a test to measure magical power. The guards present an orb, which will be used as a measuring device to visualize the magic power of anyone who touches it. The students are to step forwards one by one and pour their magical power into the orb, and then they will be graded based on what shows. The first group of students aren't that impressive to the examiner giving the grades, and he gives most of them average marks. Then it reaches Kyosuke's turn, and he proudly steps up to the orb to take his test, flashing his card to the examiner as he goes by. The man isn't too impressed at seeing a level 30 void user, and he already doesn't expect much from him. However, his expectations are blown out of the water as Kyosuke unleashes a massive amount of magical power, causing the orb to glow with a bright light that almost blinds everyone in the area. They can barely believe how powerful he is just from the first test. As the light show dies down, Kyosuke calmly walks away as the examiner gives him an S grade for the first test. The next is a magic skills test, which is a student's opportunity to demonstrate what they can do with their attributes. Kyosuke generates a lump of earth, which is a very basic spell that most people can do. But then he follows it up by creating a ball of water, which is already shocking enough. But afterwards, he finishes it up with a ball of fire, lightning, and air, and manages to perfectly hold all of them together at once. Those are all the basic attributes of magic being cast and maintained at the same time, and it's a feat that no one has ever seen before. That's the power of the void attribute, which has been mocked as powerless for much too long. Asahi runs over to congratulate him after his incredible performance, but now it's her turn to prove her worth with her magic. She steps up to a bunch of dried and dead plants and casts light magic on them, instantly reviving them and filling them with vitality. The other students laugh at the fact that all she can do is revive dead plants, which is nothing special, but Kyosuke knows the true value of her skill. She has light attribute magic, which is just as rare as his void attribute, which means she has the potential to become powerful like him. But it'll be difficult for the examiners to evaluate her skills because it's so rare. He feels a bit bad for her, but it's better for her to not get dragged into this mess with him. Unexpectedly, despite Kyosuke's thoughts, Yang Xinyu puts her name down as someone worth trying as a test subject. After all the exams are done, the last stage is a one-on-one duel with the examiners. These examiners are members of the Great Snake of Changshan, so naturally the students have no chance of winning. But this fight isn't about whether the students can win or lose. They will all be evaluated based on how well they fight. Yang Xinyu is well aware that there is no way a student could win against them in the first place. Kyosuke's turn comes up, and he's set to face one of the toughest-looking examiners in the event. He has already made quite a stir during the exam with all the showing off he did earlier, so the teacher is more than happy to face off against him and prove that his results in all the other tests don't mean anything when faced with real combat. Kyosuke humble agrees and says that he is excited to learn a lot from their fight. The examiner is eager to finish this in one hit and creates a large attack from earth magic, firing multiple shots at Kyosuke. The student is immediately able to block it with wind magic, and he counters the attack completely, sending it all flying back at the examiner. He can't believe that a mere student could destroy his magic with one hit, but by the time he looks up, Kyosuke is gone. Then he reappears behind the man with a sharp icicle made from water magic pressed on his throat. The winner is declared immediately, and Kyosuke comes out on top in the exam. Yang Xinyu can't believe that a student would be able to win against someone from his clan, and he starts to wonder just who Kyosuke is. Later that day, he calls Lei Ruoxi to explain the details of the exam. She asks him if he found any interesting test subjects, and he brings up a student in particular that is rather interesting. He passed the exam with an overwhelmingly strong performance, and it seems like he has the void attribute. As soon as Lei Ruoxi hears that, she realizes that the student is most likely the same person that Iwako was looking into. Now that she has heard that, it looks like she has managed to get her hands on a very interesting guinea pig.